And we are live with episode 175 of the Parting Shot Podcast. I'm your host, as always, James Lynch, and joining me across the... Wait a second, I'm not James Lynch. I'm not James Lynch.
But it's a damn fine impression.
It was sweet, man. I practiced that for maybe all of 15 seconds. But joining me across the planet, on the other side of the world, the man himself, the Taiwanese government's secret weapon, it's Mr. Carlin Bardsley. How you doing, bro?
Not so secret no more, but I'm doing good, man. This is the talk of the MMA world right now. Get Legacy RFA together. I mean, really, who cares? But for us to do a joint episode of the Parting Shot and before the ball man speaks, the MMA world has been turned upside down by this news, Andrew Lawrence.
It is a huge development, and I think it extends beyond MMA. It probably just helps like Canadian, Taiwanese, U.S. relations. We can all sit down at the table together now.
Well, I hope so. I mean, that was the goal. Sat down and with this that we would provide a platform for international goodwill. I mean, if we can somehow get the Chinese to the table, that would be nice too. But 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If the Chinese representatives want to be stubborn and not step to the table of goodwill, then, we can only serve the food. We can't force you to eat, my man.
Chinese? Stubborn? Never!
All right, enough with international realpolitik, because we watched a goddamn execution this evening. Cyborg, Christiane Santos, she scores I guess you could consider it a TKO victory in the second round, 2 minutes and 29 seconds, just midway into that second round. A surprising ending in the fact that maybe she made it a lot longer than people thought she would. An interesting fight and an interesting booking from the UFC. But I thought what was more interesting than the finish that everyone kind of saw coming, Carlin, was the treatment that she got before and after from the UFC broadcast. I found it very interesting, the words that Anik chose to use in the post-fight.
Yeah, interesting is one word for it. Ridiculous is probably be my go-to. One of the all-time greats of mixed martial arts. I'm like,
he's a legend.
Is Chris Greasy in the crowd or something? Like, well, what are they doing right now? It was absolutely just mind-numbing to me that John Anik was just fawning over this woman who, while it was a very impressive victory, I'm not trying to take that away from her. Well, what did she really do? She beat another hopelessly overmatched opponent. I mean, oh, great, Mike Tyson beat Peter McNeely. What do we do with that, right? I mean, it was just absolutely stunning to me. And, oh, I wish I had a belt to give you, Cyborg. It would be so nice. I mean, come on, there are trophies in frame behind you right now that we could give to Cyborg to quench John Anik's thirst, I think.
This would have been genius, if you hand a little, get the baseball dude up the top, Let's get Cyborg. Oh, no, you know who you put? You put like a Wanderlei Silva on the top of this, you know what I mean? With just a mean, terrible...
The wig on it?
Yes, that's what I thought they were referring to. We were going to, Cyborg couldn't make the weight, so we put a wig on Wandy, and we just sent him out there to murder some poor girl.
Yeah, what do you do with Cyborg next, honestly, I've been thinking about this. If, everyone, not everyone, but there's been a few very vocal people, and people whose opinions I respect, saying that, oh, why do they make Cyborg, do 140? Well, there's exactly 2 fights at 145, and both opponents are contracted to the Bellator promotion, okay? There's
Julie Budd and
Julie Budd, exactly, yeah. So that's one reason. The other reason is, they keep thinking if they keep making her make 140, eventually they can get her down to 35 or talk to 35 or up into moving to 40. But we saw again that she's just so huge, that it's a physical improbability, if not impossibility at this point. So what do you do there? If you're not going to go full bore and make a Gabby Garcia fight, what do you really do with her? After watching some of the Ryzen footage this week, I think the fight to make is Cyborg Destino against Crazy Horse Bennett.
That's my best fight, matchmaking that you've ever done. Crazy Horse Bennett should definitely be fighting Cyborg. That I worry for Crazy Horse in that fight. You know, his chin isn't all that great. He might take a beating.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's a very intriguing fight on a lot of levels, and Crazy Horse, he does enough drugs that probably he'll be on some trip. He'll think that Cyborg is Vanderlei Silva, and he's finally getting that fight. So I mean, it's win-win.
That's how you get him to sign the bout agreement. You don't tell him anything. You say you fight and want. You just sign all this paperwork. Get it back to us. You're gonna get $500 to show. 500 bucks to win. Yeah, and he'll be happy, man.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I would do with Cyborg at this point, because really, I am tired of hearing all this fawning over her, like beating up completely overmatched opponents. I mean, it's just not interesting to me. And the Jon Anik post-fight treatment, it really did kind of light a fire under me in a lot of ways. I'm like, the all-time greats. Okay, like seriously, no one has, as a casual fan, no one has cared about her to beat Gina Carano, and that was like 6 years ago. Okay, she's done nothing since then. You and I know her because we watched more fights than Wilt the Stilt had pieces of ass. But John and Mary Lunchbuck, they don't give a flying fuck.
Nor should they. Really, this is a female fighting in a division that's very sparse, and it's just a weird fight. I mean, I'm gonna run down for you the names of the people that she's defeated before tonight. She defeated Leslie Smith, which
125er, big Leslie Smith fan, but a 125er.
Yeah, for real. The balls on Leslie Smith to take that fight. Daria Ibragimov. That speaks for itself. Faith Van Dunham. Charmaine Tweet. No, that's a name. Marloes Conan.
And I love Char as much as anyone in the world. She is just a great human being. But you could tell she looked a little, a little stuck in her feet in that fight as well, just because I think that the rep got to her, and she looked a little bit frozen, and then all of a sudden, boom, Cyborg just lands a KO shot. But again, Charmaine Tweet, as much as I love Charmaine as a fighter and as a human being, like, what does that really mean?
Yeah, at least for a casual standpoint, to me, I said that's a name. But if we're talking about the actual business of making money from watching people fight, that is not a name. And then Marloes Conan, we know about that. I think she's defeated Marloes twice now. And Fiona Muxlow. Yeah, we're starting to get to the bottom of the barrel here, people.
Yeah, the female fight is the one that always keeps making me laugh, because as people keep saying to me, oh, well, that they made fights for an Invicta. I'm like, yeah, that's the fight they made for an Invicta. Like, I'm trying real hard to stay politically correct here, but what's the next step from Fiona Muxlow? Fighting Lady Truckers?
Fighting the soccer mom from Explode FC, who's 2-43.
Right, or Tony Soprano's sister or something. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, what we are seeing here, and I thought it was interesting because we're seeing the UFC take a decided turn in how they're going to address Cyborg. It's been no secret that they've kind of poo-pooed Cyborg. They made her life miserable. They're doing this 140 thing. They're not giving her a title. They're not quite sure what to do with her for the longest time. And I think, Dana White's comments about her have clearly been disparaging in the past. Now we're seeing people being egged on clearly by the UFC production crew to give her a lot of compliments, to very much hype her. We're seeing her in a main event. We saw her in a showcase fight in a major pay-per-view in Brazil. So they're looking at Cyborg as a way to reinvigorate the Brazilian market, and I think that there's good money there. The problem is that there's just not competitive fights there.
No, and we keep coming back to the same point. Like, okay, she can be a local drawing card, absolutely, But with Tor Belfort on the way out, with Vanderlei retired, with Anderson semi-retired, with Nogueira's pretty much gone at this point. Yeah, they need another name, so Cyborg can fill that void. But again, what do you do with her? She is so much larger than every other contracted UFC athlete that it just becomes like a shell game at one point. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what the answer is if it's not a Gabby Garcia fight. I'm not even saying that as a joke. I mean, Cyborg versus Gabby Garcia, at least then you've got
super interesting.
Intrigue. Yeah, you've got a hook, right?
Exactly.
If you're going to say, all right, well, geez, Cyborg's going to fight someone else that, is at least 2 classes down from her, or that doesn't have a prayer of beating her to begin with. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I guess, if you're UFC, you could reach out to Jarena Bars, at least play up that narrative. Hey, this woman beat Cyborg in kickboxing. So, we've got something we can do with that. I think Cyborg would murder her in an MMA fight. At least then you've got some kind of hook. I don't know exactly what else you do with that if it's not Gabby Garcia.
This is what I'm thinking. So there's a lot of girls moving around the 135 title picture right now, and some of them are names, and some of them have expressed interest in fighting Cyborg. I think they want a payday attached to it. So if the UFC is smart, they could maybe parlay, a big fight between Chris Cyborg and, say, Holly Holm or Miesha Tate. If they could get the money to be right for those shows, I think that could be a very compelling matchup. I think I think you have to throw these girls extra money to take it. I don't think anyone's smart or dumb enough in that business to take that without, getting a bit more of the piece of the pie. But I think there's things you can do there with these big names, and I actually would be extremely intrigued with the Holly Holm Cyborg fight. And then there's just, of course, the the creme de la creme of, will Ronda Rousey ever come back? And if she does, that Cyborg Ronda fight, which I don't think is ever going to happen, but if it did, it could be real money for both of them.
It's interesting that you say that, and it kind of ties into the point you made earlier about, UFC is now finally starting to, really, really push Cyborg on their programming. So are the whispers true? Could Ronda Rousey be back before the end of the year and make that fight? And that's why, the sudden shift in attitude towards Cyborg. I mean, that to me it's still a marketable fight. It's not nearly as marketable as when Ronda was the world beater and Cyborg was, the great unknown threat kind of thing. As far as Holly Holm and Miesha Tate go, maybe if you throw enough money at Holly Holm, she takes that fight, because really, she's stuck in career neutral right now. I don't think Miesha Tate takes that fight for $1 zillion, and I wouldn't if you're Miesha Tate either. There's literally no upside for Miesha Tate to take that fight, right?
No, and it's a terrible style matchup for her, too. She's going to get beaten.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense for Miesha Tate to do that. It sounds nice in an interview that, I'd entertain that idea, but no. It's not going to happen. Holly Holm, maybe, just because I've never seen so much squandered so quickly in a UFC career other than Holly Holm. So Cyborg and Holly Holm, yeah, maybe that's her last chance to cash out. I can see that. Miesha Tate, absolutely not.
Yeah, definitely. What's interesting about or one more point I wanted to make about the Ronda Rousey aspect of this is I think that the UFC figured out, with Ronda leaving for a year, they recognize what you have with Ronda Rousey here, and that if she does return, maybe you get 2 fights out of her, maybe you get 3 fights out of her, but you definitely only get 1 more win streak out of her. So while Ronda Rousey business is a lot more dollars in big events, there's more of a long-term future in a Cyborg. So if you're going to bring Ronda back, you maybe have her fight for the title one time, hope that she wins, and then you try to get this super fight. If you can't do that, you're trying to get this super fight happen on each one. The bump that Cyborg will get from that super fight will be massive, and you can make some residual paydays with Cyborg after that big fight, because you could maybe make the Holly Holm fight after that, or something like that. Maybe you'll find another 35er who will gain some name value. Because honestly, besides Holly Holm, Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, even if you're gonna put these 3-4 tiered girls in that fight with her, like Juliana Pena, that doesn't do shit. You might as well have Lina Lansberg out there.
Yeah, and that's what makes me laugh about people that say oh, they should just give Cyborg a 145 belt and just let her knock out nobodies every week. It's just why? That's good. There's no long term in that. It's going to get real old real fast, right?
Yeah.
What are they going to have her fight Roseanne next?
I would pay $60 for that. If you space it out well enough, and you make it a special attraction occasionally, the Cyborg sacrificial lamb hour can be okay, but you're gonna have to spice it up with good co-main events. You're not gonna be able to do an event like this, which is a weird event. It's a top-heavy event with Chris Cyborg being the top-heavy part of it. I'm sorry, but I'm not sold on the idea that Henan Brow's setting the world on fire down there in Brazil, and everyone's throwing down their hials for to go see the Baron. Maybe Roy Nelson and Bigfoot's kind of a little bit of a spectacle, but nah. To me, this card was the Chris Cyborg show, and it's sold based on that. So a lot of question marks on the future of her career and moving forward.
Yeah, and what was the attendance tonight? Like, I really don't know. Do we know if the
You're used to having a co-host who's like a professional, and this is where you're dealing with me now. I don't have facts and figures.
Lynch, where are you?
James Lynch, text into the show and tell us things that we should be knowing as journalists.
Yes, journalists.
Journalists?
Are you kidding?
It's so funny. We interact a lot with like journalists, and occasionally someone will throw that term my way, and we're like, "Oh, good God, no! That is not what I do at all. I do not want to hitch my cart to the nightmare that is being an MMA journalist. God bless you, James Lynch. You're the best in the business. We love you, but
nobody works than Lynch. The term I like, I used to be like, I guess a quasi-journalist, but now I'm on the other side of the world. I just kind of plug in every now and again. But my favorite term, it has to go to my buddy Donnie Wilson, who writes for Top MMA News. He goes, "I'm not a journalist. I'm a content provider." I'm like, I like that.
That's like being a sex worker and not a prostitute.
It feels a little better.
Yeah, exactly. The whole world runs on euphemisms, my good man.
I can put it on a business card?
Yeah. Carlin Bardsley, sex worker, content provider.
Yeah, slash.
All right, man. The co-main event at 145 pounds, Henan Barao defeats Felipe Nover. How the fuck did he get this fight? By unanimous decision, 2 scores of 29-28 and 1 score of 30-27. I tried. I think that the pacing of the whole night really made this impossible for me to enjoy.
Well, you know what? I thought that Felipe Nover had a real good chance to win this fight, and you know what? He got the fight because he took the fight. Not a whole lot of people want to go down to Brazil to fight. Period. Okay,
that's a great point.
And everything else kill you.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of people want to go down to Brazil to fight Henan Barao. That's another thing. Felipe Nover's, yeah, fuck, I got a free weekend. Let's, so that's how he got this fight. But I'm a big Felipe Nover fan, and maybe that colored me a bit here. But I thought he could have won the first round.
I scored the first round for him as well.
Yeah, and I thought if he believed in himself more and would just unleash, he won that fight. But he got trapped in his own head a bit. Trying to play the ghost counter move game with Henan a lot. Instead of just believing, because when he started landing those punches, Henan was not liking that shit at all. And he's got vicious leg kicks, and if he could just put it all together and just go at him, like his corner was imploring him to do, I think that fight was there for Felipe Nover to take. I am not impressed with Henan Barao post USADA. I'm just not. Okay. So if Felipe Nover believed in himself, he could have won that fight. I said on last week's show that if you're looking for a live dog, that was it. And it was there for the taking. But, unfortunately, Felipe Nover just didn't have that killer instinct tonight.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think what was particularly interesting and what he moved away from that could have got him the fight was he's pumping the jab in the first couple seconds of the fight. The first thing, they both throw a jab, and they both landed. But I think it was clear that Nover landed the sharper one, or that just Barao didn't like the jab that greeted him in the face nearly as much as Nover could take it. These guys were well matched as athletes. Maybe the technique wasn't as well matched, and the mentality was definitely not well matched. But if we're talking about pure athletic skill, Anderson Silva over here was showing up. This is a guy who probably looks like on fire in the gym. You get the impression that this guy clearly can impress, especially when you're working with him day in and day out. but he doesn't show up under the lights at all, and that is maybe one of the most important skills in fighting. A lot of times people like to emphasize, athletic skill and talent and, training and all this stuff, but there is something about being a person who can just, when every eye is on you, want to, ascend to do something awesome, to do something great, to go there and take it. It's so important in a sport like this, and Philippe Nover's it just doesn't have that. So he's not going to be able to perform at this elite level.
The issue with Philippe, if you ever talk to Philippe, he's such a smart guy.
Smart guys do bad in this sport, man. Being smart is not a good thing.
That's my point exactly. That's my point exactly. He is so smart and so intelligent that I'm sure he's already thinking like 3 or 4 things he could be doing instead of doing one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's where Philippe gets tripped up a little bit because, yeah, he is very athletic and everyone that I've talked to that trains him, no, dude's a beast. He puts in the work, but when it comes to fight night, I'm sure he's got Renan Barão in front of him and he's already thought 6 or 7 moves down the line rather than concentrating on one and going, right?
Yeah, and you could see that paralysis by analysis in that, he couldn't build his combos. You're successful with the jab and you're finding it. And, I thought that Renan's big, defensive hole is that he doesn't move his fucking head ever, right?
No, it's big. It's right there.
So, you could get popped in the mouth with the jab if you have that slick boxing. And I thought that he was fast enough with his footwork, I'm talking about Nover now, that he could have been very successful with the stick and move philosophy. But there he is not doing it. If you just go into autopilot throwing the jab, just knowing, hey, I'm going to throw this jab on an offbeat timing or on whatever, and just get it out there, then you're going to find openings to throw. And maybe by just moving, you get your body into, acting instinctually instead of analyzing. Every fighter says if you're thinking out there, you're losing because you need to just be reacting and living in the fight. Mickey Gall, I was interviewing him after his fight, and he says he didn't even think about taking the takedown. Everyone asked him, why'd you take it to the ground? He goes, I didn't even think about taking it to the ground. I just did what my body does because it was a fight. Having that awareness or having that ability to just turn off the brain and just react is so vital and probably something that Philippe hasn't quite mastered.
No, and he's like they said on the broadcast, he's an RN, so a lot of his job is thinking and analyzing and then reacting. I mean, that's what his brain is trained to do. And I don't think it's as much just reacting in the moment. And there's a reason all those years ago Dana White called him the next Anderson Silva, which he's been trying to live down ever since. You know what I mean? But I know he's got the talent, but like you said, paralysis by analysis. But if we can look for a silver lining for Philippe Nover in this fight, he went 15 minutes with Renan Barão, the monster, the guy that was the scourge of the UFC bantamweight division for that long, So if in that he can find confidence and he can just say, I need to just trust in what I know more, then Philippe Nover, he's still got a lot of fucking tread left on those tires, man.
Yeah. Other side of this coin, Renan Barão, you're talking about a guy who not long ago in Dana White's vlog series, he was standing behind his desk reading off all these stats about how awesome he was awkwardly. A guy who was unstoppable until he met one TJ Dillashaw. Back at now he's at 145 pounds. He's off the juice. If I'm being frank. And,
quite clearly, you can just tell his body type, right?
Right, and even when he was back at 135. It seemed like there were some question marks. I remember in between the TJ fight, I thought he fought like Mitch Clark or someone. That doesn't make sense. Who did he fight?
Mitch Gagnon.
Thank you. Close in names.
Yeah.
But completely different weight classes and human beings. But even in that fight, human beings. They both get the seal of approval. But even in that fight, you saw it kind of slipping. And that seems to be the way with Barão, that even in some of these victories, you're watching a guy slowly lose that edge.
Yeah, and Renan Barão, I mean, his salad days are done. Let's be frank about this, okay? You saw to hit him like a truck. And, even then, he was having trouble making 135. And Dominic Cruz made a brilliant point during the broadcast that when TJ Dillashaw countered Renan Barão, he did so on an angle, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, Barão's lack of head movement, if he just steps to the side, boom, it's right there. It's right there all goddamn day. And he has not learned to react to that. His reaction time is getting slower and slower, it seems, with each fight. I mean, I will fade Renan Barão from here to eternity, if I'm being quite frank.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I can only imagine him sparring in training camp at Novo and Yao, just having people tee off on that big old noggin day after day. So, things aren't getting better for the Renan Barão camp. So hop off that bandwagon if you haven't 3 or 4 fights ago, people.
Renan Barão is 145-pound Bigfoot Silva. Mark my words.
Okay, that's great transition because, yeah, Bigfoot Silva got, died like the rest of his species must have. Big Country Roy Nelson knocking him out in the second round with punches at 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Another fight that kind of interesting because it lasted longer than we thought it would, but really not too interesting because it ended the way we all knew it must have. What was more interesting was the shit that happened afterwards. Roy Nelson.
I know, yeah. Second UFC event in a row where we're talking about post-fight shenanigans being, the most intriguing part of the fight. I mean, you're allowed to kick coaches now. You're allowed to kick referees. Who are you not allowed to kick in the UFC? We've got to raise the stakes if we're being honest about this. Okay, we had Verdum. Yeah, we had Verdum kicking Edmund Tard. I won't even say it. He's just Edmund Tard.
Which I support.
Yeah, and now we had Roy Nelson, giving a boot to the butt to Big Jim McCarthy. I mean, next fight out, like wherever it is, I want someone to kick Joe Silva because he's leaving anyway.
You just Sparta kick Joe Silva across the cage. You'd probably just get dead.
He's only feet tall, so it'd just be a hilarious visual.
Joe Silva has murderers on call. I'm going to go ahead and make that claim on the internet for everyone to know. He knows people who will assassinate.
He's not one of the Martitas. Let's calm down.
Well, exactly. He just makes the call to Frankie. Frankie, 3 sticks. He gets out there, finds the gunman. It's a diffusion of responsibility in the mafia.
Right, and all of a sudden, Jimmy 2 times is on the scene. He's going to get the papers.
All right. Glad we're on the same page here. So Roy Nelson doing Roy Nelson things. Bigfoot, can we get him retired?
I hope so. Like, I don't like calling for people's retirement because, that's their livelihood. It's their life. Yeah. They have to provide for their families. But Jesus Christ, how much evidence do you really need to say, listen, dude, you've had enough, okay? Like, it's, you had a good run, dude. You beat Fedor, he didn't have his priest.
Knocked out the Reem, man.
Yeah, he took out the Reem. Adam Martin loves watching that fight with me because apparently I was hitting the roof, when that happened. So, you had a good run. It's time to call it a day. Like, when you walk into the cage, forget the 6 previous losses by TKO and everything else. When you walk in the cage having the same haircut I did when I was 15 years old, you've made some questionable life choices, okay? And maybe now it's time to quit while you're ahead.
The CTE is setting in when you go into the cage with that haircut.
I was just like, is that hot in Brazil right now? Or are they like just 20 years behind everything, and so maybe that happens? Like, it could be. I'm in Taiwan, and like jean shorts, cut off jean shorts on girls, like the hot fashion item right now. So like, I don't know. I don't know enough about other cultures, but I do know that no matter what culture you're in, it was out of style when I was 15 years old. Now.
Yeah, let's let it go. Bigfoot Silva, let's let go of your MMA career. You talked about not wanting to call fighters out and tell them that their career's over, and I understand that completely. I agree with you in that I make the exception for this, and I make the exception a lot on this show because I call for a lot of fighters' retirements, only in the situation of if I feel that this fighter just needs a friend. Like, if you had a really good friend in your life, and as Bigfoot Silva, he or she must be telling you that you need to stop this. This is going to affect you in a vastly negative way for the elder parts of your life. You just can't take punishment like he's taking, and you're watching him get dropped in their shots that he could normally take, and that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, how much of that was, HGH or, testosterone or anything else as well, right? I mean, like, I don't think a pissing clean Bigfoot Silva last 5 rounds with Mark Hunt. I just, we saw the result of that as well. But you're right. Someone needs to sit him down and say, listen, dude, you're too brave for your own good. Andre the Giant, we love you, but go home.
Yeah, it's the UFC was going to cut him after the last fight, and he begged and pleaded with them to give him one more shot. So they hooked him up with, I thought, a decent matchup. If you can't beat Roy Nelson at this point, what you hanging around the heavyweight division for? There's no greener pastures out there. Who are we going to put you up against? Derek Lewis and watch you get murdered against him? I mean, come on. Enough's enough. For Roy Nelson, it's a win, and he kind of gets to maintain his position as a heavyweight gatekeeper and a fun attraction. There's never going to be a time in MMA where a guy with a big fat gut who knocks people the fuck out isn't going to, be an asset to a company. So he gets to keep being that guy, I guess.
Yeah, Roy Nelson gets to hang on to a little bit of relevance, I guess. That's the best thing you can say about Roy Nelson in this fight. I'm more interested, again, in the post-fight, though. Like, Roy Nelson was visibly angry that he had to hit Bigfoot Silva as many times as he did. Like, he looked at McCarthy once and said, listen, like, I can see his eyes in the back of his skull. He's not here. What the fuck are you waiting for, kind of thing. McCarthy's like, fight on. And you can tell Nelson, like, he wasn't even hammering him with those last couple of punches. He's like, okay, look, these are happening. Call the fight. Would he have been better off to do the Mark Hunt walk-off thing? Or, because we've seen that backfire on a couple of fighters before, right?
Yeah.
So, like, doing that situation, is John McCarthy just wrong for not calling the fight as expediently as we all would have liked it? Is Roy Nelson wrong for, I think he's wrong for kicking John McCarthy anyway, but is he wrong for being as upset as he was? I mean, what's the read on this?
Well, this is my read on it. And on this show and on any other thing that I'm on, I always preach stop these fights earlier. We just know how devastating that, traumatic brain injuries can be to, people's lives after they retire. My point is when someone takes a massive amount of damage and they're not fully out, it's such a rare occurrence when that person recovers and then manages to win a fight. I know people will always point to 2 examples, but then I could point to 3 examples inside of the same card where that person took a massive shot, they let it go for a little bit, and all he proceeded to do was get pounded on the head 10 to 12 more times, giving more and more subconcussive blows post the concussion that they just got. So to me, that's an egregious part about this sport that we need to do to protect fighters so that fighters can have careers that are 40 fights long instead of careers that are 15 fights long. And especially now that we're seeing guys like a Rory McDonald, he's been fighting people since he was fucking 16. And now it's starting to wear and tear on him and when it's supposed to be the prime of his career. So I think we as a sport need to just take a step back and look at this and realize, maybe it's just even if you get, sincerely dropped. If you get dropped and you're, grabbing onto a single leg blindly with your eyes closed, looking dazed, I'm fine with stopping that. And you could say, he's defending himself, he's got a single leg there. It's yeah, but that's a horseshit single leg, so who gives a fuck? Stop the fight. In this situation, I agree with Roy. You should be pissed, especially if you're fighting someone that you respect and you like. I don't think that they're the greatest friends in the world, but there was clearly some respect there. They were hugging, being all lovey-dovey before during the weigh-ins and the pre-fight. So I can understand him being upset that he was put in that situation, and John was in the wrong. I think that this stoppage came a little late. I thought the follow-up shots were kind of necessary because he wasn't completely out from that overhand, right? He was still with it and looked like he was trying to maintain a guard and get back to his feet. But about that third shot when they were on the ground gives him, he does the back of the head bounce against the canvas. And when I see that, instantly it's done. That to me, you're gone, and fight over. Anyone can complain about that because sometimes that second rock against the canvas wakes them back up. But I don't care. You know, fighters are going to have to deal with that. If you get in that bad of a situation, you are losing this fight. So use your technique to not get in that situation. I think that Roy has a leg to stand on here. Whether or not it's, you know, the best way to express it is to run over and kick the referee. You know, but it's Roy Nelson, so poor decision making is kind of par for the course.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? We've got, you know, Roy Nelson's next most marketable fight now is against Big John McCarthy.
I bet the Las Vegas or the Nevada State Athletic Commission would sanction it too.
Yeah, well, you know, it'll happen in Ryzen if nothing else. But, you know, you're talking about, you know, aggressive blows and things like this. I still really think, and this is my, you know, one of my favorite fighters of all time, I still think Chuck Liddell is going to be patient zero for this. If we can look at Chuck Liddell and all of a sudden in 5 or 10 years go, my God, this guy's a drooling, bubbling mess, then we have to sincerely reevaluate where we are in this sport. If Chuck's fine, then, you know, okay, well, we maybe go par for the course or maybe just, you know, try to tighten up a bit.
Yeah.
You know, but we really have no long-term data because the sport is so new. So, you know, especially a guy that was in the wars like Chuck, you know, his whole thing was he can walk through any punch, right? And he did it to Vitor, you know, he did it to so many people. And then all at the end, you know, he was getting laid out by shots that you would never see a guy getting laid out by. So, I mean, I really think he's going to be patient zero. Well, we have to monitor Chuck Liddell. He is, you know, he's our rhesus monkey on this one.
Yeah, I love it. He's the canary in the coal mine. I will say, you said, like, you know, if he becomes a bumbling, stumbling mess, he is already kind of a little bit of a mess. I've been hearing him recently in some podcasts, and he's got a thing when he talks, and you're like, did Chuck always kind of talk like he was drunk? And then you wonder, is Chuck actually drunk right now?
Yeah, I know. See, that's the thing. Maybe Chuck is just having too much fun, and they caught him at that point, right?
Exactly. He's got the Uber on call. He's probably got a cocktail in the back, you know, hitting the old bottle. You can't blame the guy. He's probably enjoying his life.
Yeah, you know, UFC Fight Night when he was watching Tito and Vitor, he did the whole, you know, like coke face thing. I was like, oh, Chuck, baby, lay off the candy.
Yeah, could you imagine doing coke with Chuck Liddell?
I couldn't. It would simultaneously be the greatest and most terrifying thing in my life.
It's like, you know, I wouldn't know these things, but I hear about people who have done cocaine. I hear stories, Carlin.
Yes, stories.
And occasionally in these stories, you hear people get like a little like, imagine if he just like, you know, jokingly decided to just punch you, you know, having a good time, like having a laugh. I'm gonna slug you, you know, and you get like knocked the fuck out while you're on coke with Chuck Liddell. Doing coke with Chuck Liddell is a crapshoot, is what I'm trying to tell you, viewers.
Yeah, I honestly think it'd be a great party, to be honest with you, because, you know, Chuck, you know, from everything I've heard about the guy, is just a great guy. Even when he's partying, you know, he wants to have fun. He doesn't want to, you know, like do anything like, you know, violent or anything like that. One of my favorite Chuck stories is that a guy I know that was hanging out with Chuck at an after party, you know, a guy had a little bit too much liquid courage, and, you know, he wants to try Chuck, you know. And Chuck just kind of took the guy by the arm and said, listen, dude, I'm just here to have a good time. You know, I don't want to do anything of this. This is my phone number. If you really want to fight, call me tomorrow and we'll do it. But we're not doing this tonight. And apparently he's done that before. And he says that the only people that have ever called him the next day called to apologize.
Oh, of course, right? That is actually a classy as fuck way to handle that. Especially, imagine how many dumb drunk assholes must challenge you to a fight when you're Chuck Liddell.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, fuck you. You're just a mohawk and a funny mustache. You know, like, okay, 18 beers.
Yeah, just the dumbest lowlifes in the whole world talking shit to you, and you're like, oh, God, I'm like an accomplished human being, and you're a piece of shit, and you're just going to do this to me, and I got to take it. I'm going to take it.
Oh, it just bleeds here. Oh, who lets this guy in?
It's literally just bleed.
Yeah.
If I met doing coke with that guy, now that's a story.
Yeah, exactly. Like Chuck probably just have a good time. That guy, something weird would happen. You wind up in jail in Alabama or something like that. You know what I mean?
You're in Dothan, Alabama with him for some reason by the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you don't stay there, that's where the night is going to end up.
It always ends in Dothan, man.
Everything ends in Dothan.
Especially your dignity.
Yeah.
That could be the opening of a new, priest and a rabbi meet in a bar. It's Just Bleed and Chuck Liddell meet at a Coke party.
Yeah, in LA, and it ends in Dothan, Alabama.
Perfect. All right. There were some other fights that happened here. We'll scroll through them, with a little bit of brevity for the sake of the listening audience.
No more Chuck Liddell cocaine stories.
We could do that for another 20 minutes. And they're not actual stories. They're just what we wish it was like hanging out with Chuck doing coke. You get to... never mind. All right. Lightweight. We had Francisco Masalanduba Trinaldo defeating Paul Felder by the most disgusting eye cut that you've ever seen. Did you see the photo that Dana White tweeted out afterwards?
That was the grossest thing I've seen since Marvin Eastman, to be honest with you. That was some heavy shit.
It reminded me of the Marvin Eastman one. Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly my thought. And, props to Paul Felder for wanting to keep going, but no, dude, no. Safety first, right?
Yeah, when fighters say things like that, that's when you realize that maybe when they protest that the fight was stopped too early, that they're being dumb as fuck, and that we need to make decisions for them because they're stupid people.
Well, they're in the moment. That's the thing. They're in the moment, the adrenaline's pumping and everything else. They want to keep going. Yeah. Tim Sylvia wanted to keep going when Frank Mir snapped his arm in two. But that's why we have officials.
Yeah.
Protect the fighters from themselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's not so much the other guy across the cage. It's your willingness to take a shitload of punishment. Vikings had berserkers. Are you aware of the concept of berserkers?
The berserkers?
Yeah, so they would be like the dudes in your village and in your raiding war party who were just the psychoist path, maniacs. Imagine Brock Lesnar or Chuck Liddell, and they would just send them out first in the raiding party just to cause mayhem, so that when people would see them coming, they'd be like, "Oh fuck, look at these crazy assholes." And they would get cut, and they would take an injury and still fight. They would do mushrooms before they went into battle. They all kinds of primordial versions of amphetamines. The UFC fighters are full of berserk.
Make you want to fight though? From the stories I've heard about mushrooms, I just I hear that it's a lot of hanging out in black light and listening to Pink Floyd.
If you can kill someone with a battle axe on mushrooms, you're a much stronger-willed person than me.
Yeah. Your hair is so shiny.
It's like I can't even be bothered. I'll listen to the same record 8 times in a row because I can't change I can't change.
Exactly. That's what I love about CD players is that this is always on repeat. I don't have to actually get up and hit play again.
Just put it on shuffle forever. Who gives a shit? But anyway, these guys are in berserker mode. They're in full kill mode. So you have to kind of. It's amazing, I think, that we don't see any more crazy shit happen. Like a referee trying to stop a fighter and them just keep going. I can completely relate to some of the dumber things that we see, and that's why you always see me fighting with people on Twitter against this social justice, like, oh, why isn't that person acting with so much dignity in this caged fight?
Yeah, exactly. They're paid money, and people are watching them to act violent, and then we expect a switch to just flip like that, right? And it doesn't always like that. Like people getting upset at Michael Johnson last time.
That was stupid.
Exactly. I didn't understand that at all. What he did wasn't that bad. He was just all pumped up on adrenaline. As soon as he calmed down, he was like, "Yeah, Dustin's a great guy. I was just excited to beat him." Yes, that is the appropriate response.
Yeah, you were disrespecting an unconscious fighter after you brutally fucking took that consciousness away from him.
I know.
You're not upset with that part of it? You're like, you said some bad words afterwards.
That's okay. Turning his lights out is okay, but making a gesture while his lights are out is not okay. And you know what? Dustin wasn't aware of it anyway. This is the real damage here.
If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it,
Exactly, right?
All right, man. We had a middleweight fight with Eric Spicely, huge underdog, biggest underdog of the whole card, except for Miss Lina Lansberg, defeating Thiago Santos by submission rear naked choke in the first round, 2 minutes and 58 seconds. Props to Eric Spicely, because I wrote him off after his debut fight. I thought that this was a guy who was going to be in and out of the UFC quickly. Stepping up, beating a ranked guy. Now, I don't think the number 15 at middleweight is a very deserved spot for Thiago Santos, but he's there, and you beat him, and it was your career on the line. So you got to kind of give the old tip of the cap to Mr. Eric Spicely.
Absolutely. I mean, hats off to Eric Spicely. Absolutely. He beat a ranked guy. Thiago Santos, he's a tough dude. No one thought Eric Spicely could do it. I didn't think Eric Spicely could do it. Went out there and did it. Good for him. But then he's got the opportunity. He's on national television. He's just, the biggest underdog, and he cashes. What do you want to do?
I don't know. Fight the next guy up, I guess.
Oh my God, dude, hold my attention for 30 seconds. I am begging you.
Here's the thing. I don't mind it if they've been in a grueling war, like a 3-round battle, and they're exhausted. You choked a dude out in 2 minutes and 50 seconds, and we went to commercial break right before reading your thing. You had a great breather. You had a good chat with all your coaches. They can even remind you of the person's name that you were supposed to have pre-selected to call out, you dummy. How is everyone not getting this at this point? We talk about the same things sometimes all the time on this show, but it's only because we're so frustrated by the same stupid things, and we're stuck in this sport on repeat. It's your career. It's literally your ability to make money. You got to. It's like going into a performance review with your boss, and he sits you down and goes, "Okay, how do you think you did this year?" And you're like, could have done better.
Solid 5.5, week 6. I'm all right.
I was thinking about giving you a 5% raise, and you're like, I'd take a 2.5.
Yeah. Well, if that's what he thinks best, cool.
All you have to do is say a name just to gather any kind of excitement. And trust me, if you say the wrong name, the Twitter folks will let you know that we don't give a fuck about that fight. But if you say any name, you look at the kid Mickey Gall, and this is the second time I've referenced Mickey Gall, but you're talking about someone who's going to be the future of the sport, not because necessarily I know that he's very talented or I know that he has so much potential, but I know that he understands the fight game way better than any of these motherfuckers who've been in it for years. Say a fucking name. That's it.
Yeah, Mickey Gall made the absolute most of his opportunity in his brief time that UFC came. Did everything right. Steamrolled his opponent. Called out a marketable opponent in his post-fight interview. He made people care about what was going to happen next to him. Eric Spicely had that same opportunity. Maybe not as many eyeballs watching, but he had the same opportunity. And now, Eric Spicely versus 14. Woo! No, we're not.
Yeah, no. And I'm not sure if there was a name that could have got me excited.
Think of a goddamn name. It doesn't matter that he's in Bellator now.
Yeah, right. What's his name? You know who's really good at this is Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey always calls out the right person.
Yeah, and again, is a very smart guy as well. And I'm sure, he's already talked about with his camp. Okay, if it goes this way, I need to call out this person right now. And I'm sure that, his corner reminds him of that. Remember Nick Diaz, after he beat BJ Penn, his corner's yelling, get George, right? Yeah. Maybe, the corner have to keep this thing fresh in their heads as well, because you had that opportunity to make a dent in people's minds, and you don't take it, then, you deserve, what little money you're getting, okay? You had the opportunity to make more, and you didn't take it.
Yep, Chael Sonnen said that, unfortunately, as soon as your fight ends, your promotion for your next fight has already begun, and people got to get that into their heads. I know everyone wants to take a break and bask in the glory of it, and they think, this is my moment. But yeah, it is your moment. It's your moment to cash the fuck in, so do what the system requires you to do, and get these dummies excited about you to beat up some dumb motherfucker.
And if you want to talk about yourself, you can do that too and still be marketable. Think about Phil Baroni all those years ago. I'm the best ever. I'm the best ever. He didn't call anyone out. We're still talking about what a crazy post-fight that was. The point is that you have to make some kind of dent. You have to make some impression on people. Not just I just scored the biggest upset in UFC, recently. It was cool. Whoever they want me to fight next, I'll be nice. Like, what? Like, come on, man. Make me care. Dare me to care.
Yeah, and the elite level of this is do one thing that actually showcases your personality. You know, Phil Baroni screaming, "I'm the best ever" is like the most quintessential Guido thing to do in the entire world, you know? And it made everyone laugh because of it. And you were like, I know this guy. I went to Long Island and saw this guy. That's why I'm going to watch this guy fight. And he stayed a name after losing fights that he shouldn't have lost. It's solely because of his ability to be a personality and showcase that personality in a great way. So take a note from Phil Baroni, people. Yell some dumb shit on a microphone.
Yeah, take a note from Phil Baroni.
The only time you'll ever hear that phrase, ever. Don't listen to anything else Phil Baroni did in his life, but make sure that you really, take his post-fight interviews to heart.
Funny story,
Go for it.
Last time I talked to Phil Baroni, we were promoting a fight he was doing out here in Southeast Asia. And as soon as the interview was done, he was like, so where are you at, brother? I'm like, I'm in Taiwan. And like right up here, he's like, oh yeah, like what are the chicks like? How easy are they? What can I do to women there? Basically, was his thing. I'm like, yep. When the camera's on, when the camera's off, Phil is still Phil.
Exactly. There's no act. That is not like an elaborately planned personality. That is a man who wants to sow his wild oats all throughout the nation of Taiwan.
Yes. Taiwan, Thailand, Vietnam, or wherever it is.
Let him in. Yeah.
Phil Baroni's down for it, believe me.
Wherever that passport will get him, he's down to see your women.
Yes.
That might be Taiwan's new program to create a new super soldier army. Just let Phil Baroni hook up with tons and tons of chicks and just get Phil Baroni Taiwanese babies.
I know, because I can only so much, really.
Well, you guys will be like the guys critiquing the Phil Baroni super soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. Like Phil Baroni will be brought in to make the super soldiers, but I guarantee you, in one generation, there's going to be a hell of a lot of sarcastic Taiwanese people running around.
Yeah, and the business for pimping out really bad Toyota Corollas will go up a lot too. All right, featherweight Godfredo Pepe defeats Mike De La Torre by submission rear naked choke in a minute or 3 minutes and 3 seconds into the first round. Listen, I get it. All you internet folks, you're Godfredo Pepe marks and you love it and you think it's cool to root for this guy. I'm not on board. That's all I'm going to say is that I'm tired of Godfredo Pepe. He pulls guard way too often, and I'm not down with that. Are you on board with all of this internet love for Godfredo Pepe? I know he does wild stuff and the fights are sloppy, but that's not what I really dig. Unless it's heavyweights, then I love sloppy fighting.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed, to be honest with you. I mean, I like Pepe as a fighter. I don't know, that I would, have this weird man crush on him as some people do, but I thought he was going to beat Mike De La Torre just because I last week on the show I didn't know who Mike De La Torre was. I had to be reminded. Oh, that guy that fought Bocek a couple of years ago. Oh, okay, that guy, right? But and then I was like, okay, well, Pepe steamroll him, and then he did. So I don't know, he's beating guys he should beat and losing to guys he should lose to. It's one of those Ilir Latifi things, where I don't understand where this sudden rush of praise comes from, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think with these fighters that we kind of know where their level is, why don't we just put them against low-level dudes and just watch them smash some people? They get to smash two
Michael
people.
Page, right?
Yeah, you get to smash two people, destroy them, and then you have to fight someone of substantial competition, lose. Then you're back down to smashing the low-level guys. There should be a simple formula with people like Godfredo Pepe.
So basically make it more like boxing.
Yes, make the sport boxing. That's what I'm telling everyone.
We found the linchpin.
We figured it out, guys. Just promote this sport like boxing, and it will be better until it all falls apart.
Which it inevitably will.
Well, listen, we're all for the graveyard anyway, man. Let's just watch.
We had to wait how long for Mayweather and Pacquiao?
Until they were out of their prime. No one wanted to see it anymore, and then they're like, "We're here, guys."
Yeah, and then 4 million people still bought it.
I was one of those idiots.
Yeah, you or I have a better chance of fighting either Ken Yo or Triple G than they have fighting each other next. I mean, think how silly that is.
Yeah, if we want to go on a boxing tangent, you know that I could get upset about the lack of that matchup happening for like an hour. The only boxer I consistently watch is Triple G. I think he's the only one who's like must-see TV for every single one of his fights. And it's even at this point for me not a very avid boxing fan. I watch the major cards. It makes me disappointed every single time I hear that they're, oh, we're looking at Brooks, we're looking at this guy. It's like, shut up and fight each other. And I get it. They don't want to kill their cash cow because I think that Canelo loses that fight. But anywho, we're not going to go on a boxing tangent.
We're not? Oh, I was all excited for a second.
James Lynch would be so upset with me. He's like, I trusted you and you'd boxed us.
I think James Lynch or wherever he is right now is watching this show going, what did I leave these two idiots to do?
Fuck these morons 100%. Happy anniversary, James. Enjoy it, buddy.
We miss you, buddy. Well, watch. If he's gonna take the weekend off, play kissy face with his wife, then this is what happens to the show, right?
While the cat's away, the mice shall play. And that's the lesson you learn.
In all seriousness, I do want to wish James and Trisha a happy anniversary.
Yeah,
his wife, she's an absolutely lovely woman. James really kicked his coverage, so I'm glad that won.
Yeah, it's always nice to see guys you admire and guys who are like good guys be successful in life, not just their personal, or their career. So yeah, tip of the cap to old Jamesy boy. Anything you want to talk about that happened in the prelim card? We had Michael Pesares beat Gilbert Burns, decision, unanimous. Rani Yaya beating Michinori Tanaka, unanimous decision. Juicy Formiga beating Dustin Ortiz in kind of a grapple fest. Eric Silva getting the submission finish against Luan Chagas late in the third round. Any of that stick out to you?
I haven't watched the prelims yet because I was watching Canada versus Russia in the World Cup of Hockey. So
the World Cup of Hockey is happening right now. Did the USA get bounced early?
Yeah, they ran into Canada and it was just like, bye.
Fuck, man, that's tough.
And then Phil Kessel, oh my God, ever since that guy has left Toronto, I really like that guy because he tweeted afterwards because he got left off the team, right? He tweeted afterwards, just hanging around the house with my dog tonight. Felt like I should be doing something important. Couldn't put my finger on it. Like, what an epic troll job on USA Hockey by Phil Kessel.
Yeah, well played. You get kicked. Back in the soccer squad, Donovan got kicked off his squad, but he was nice enough to kind of toe the line. I much prefer if you're going to get kicked off of an international squad like that. Spike it in their face.
Especially because Kessel had a career year, looked amazing with the Penguins, won a cup, shut everyone up in Toronto, including me, So good for him. And then he's like, nah, we don't want you on Team USA. Why?
Yeah. Maybe grab all the talent we can when we're fighting powerhouses. As far as circling back to we'll talk about every sport but MMA at this hour of the show.
James Lynch is going to be back next week and he's going to be bald.
He's like, "Fuck you! You didn't even do the parting shot format. You didn't." Enjoy this, people of the podcasting world.
We do have listener questions, though. We can get to that and have a parting shot. So we can tie it back in, but I think we're still pretending to talk about this card at this point.
Yeah. There's a vague facade of that still going on. I will say props to Eric Silva because his career is probably on the line as well. A guy who everyone wrote off, but you beat Luan Chagas, a guy who is. I always never understood the hype behind Eric Silva. I thought that a lot of it was a pretty handsome face and some decent striking skills, but nothing there that told me, hey, mixed martial arts master here.
Eric is solidly good but not great in my eyes. I mean, again, we were talking about it earlier. He's going to beat the guys he should beat. He's going to lose to the guys he should lose to. So, he's a solid middle of the pack guy. But he's never going to do anything spectacular. I mean, the bloom is off the rose. The hype train has been sufficiently derailed. But it is nice to see him get a win and keep him somewhat relevant because now you can put him in a somewhat marketable matchup.
Sure. One other thing too from this from the prelims, Juicy or Formiga, a pretty high-ranked guy who hasn't been beaten by DJ. Do we see that fight get made? Maybe. We kind of
Yeah,
have
because
this.
they're running out of people at 125. You know what the difference is between Cyborg and DJ?
What?
He's smaller. That's it. He's got nobody to fight either. I mean, he's just wrecking fools at 125 pounds. Honestly, the only fight for DJ at this point is to go back to 35 and lose to Dominic Cruz again, because otherwise nobody is going to care. That way he can get a payday out of it.
He's asking for $2 million for that fight. I bet you would take one.
Yeah, the 2 million is definitely the first swing. That's that's the first check of the bat there. No, he'll take one. If he gets 7 figures for that fight, maybe plus 2 points, he'll be happy. And Dominic Cruz will go out there and do his little Dominic Cruz dance across from him, and it'll look like someone should be playing "Eat It" in the back while they fight or something like that, and that'll be that. But at least I'll watch that fight. I can't say that about most Demetrius Johnson fights.
Yeah, it seems most of the time you're watching them out of obligation, and you're getting the East Coast time effect here too. A lot of my DJ fights I've kind of watched with one eye open and one eye kind of.
And they keep forcing on the nation of Canada, and that was the worst part. It seemed like whenever DJ fought, it was in Canada. Vancouver.
Let's put him in Winnipeg.
He's fought in Toronto before, it's like, oh, well, we don't go back to Canada because there's not the fan support. No, we just don't want to pay to see DJ fight. Why should we be different than anybody else?
You guys are supposed to be the polite ones. You should show up and pay your $60, pay your $300 for the live ticket, and don't complain.
And, even Canadians have our limits. I think we found them with Dimitri.
We've talked about this before. There's a way to to market DJ correctly, and you join them with a fighter and make them like a combined package. It's the Chocolatito.
Yeah, Anchor. We were talking about Triple G earlier. Triple G and Chocolatito. I discovered Chocolatito because of Triple G, and now I'm like, dude, I have to see that guy fight. But,
and I tell you what, DJ's a fantastic co-main event to look forward to. You're like, it's a special treat when he's in the co-main event and he's not like the show.
Yeah, exactly. I can look forward to Demetrius Johnson fight when I'm not expecting him to carry the card. When I'm like, okay, it's this guy and it's whoever the A-list is. Yeah, okay, I'll sit through it and I'll appreciate his fine technical skill because he's a great fighter. He's great at all the physical and mental attributes of this thing. Just again, he's so overmatched with competition. Then what do I really care? I know he's not going to lose against these stiffs, so okay, it's Tyson and McNeely, sounds the whimsy.
Yeah, having these conversations with you, I realize it's just like we're in a constant search for why should I care? we sit here
apathy. Save me!
We watch this sport and we spend so much time doing it, and then we just become like misanthropes, and then we're like find a reason to care, keep my humanity. I've misplaced it somewhere in all this violence inside of a cage. Find a reason to actually give a shit, please.
I just want to dance.
Brilliant. All right, Fight Pass. Well, there's nothing to really talk about here. Alan Patrick defeats Stevie Ray, unanimous decision across the board. Vicente Luque beats Hector Urbina in what else was going to happen. And Gregor Gillespie, a D1 wrestler, makes his debut beating Galileo Franca. And excuse those pronunciations. Actually, no, I'm not apologizing for mispronouncing it.
His parents can't pronounce his name right either. No one cares.
Yeah, and they missed his fight. So, no, I'm not complaining. It was interesting to see Stevie Ray lose. I thought that, there was some Scottish hype behind I think he's from Scotland. He's from somewhere in Europe, to be determined by Wikipedia later. So, there was some hype behind him, and people thought he was going to be able to avoid wrestling from Patrick. Patrick just wrestled him. So once again, we've discovered that European fighters cannot wrestle. Hector Urbina gets into too many slugfests, and his chin can't take it. And Gregor Gillespie looked really good, but it's lightweight, 155 pounds, so we won't know if he's going to be a thing for another 5 years.
Yeah, people keep telling me that Gregor Gillespie is going to be a real thing. But what a terrible division. Like, and I don't mean terrible as in bad. I mean terrible for a guy to make a mark in just because there's so many fucking killers, just one after the other ahead of you. So I'm high on Gregor Gillespie. I'm glad to see him get the W here, but it'll be 2 years before we start talking about oh yeah, he fought some guy I've heard of.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. You see all these blue chip prospects, but when I see that 155 number next to their weight, I always say, okay, I'll take another look at him in 2 years once he's been fighting in the UFC on the Fight Pass prelims for for those period of time. You string together a couple wins, maybe you could fight a name. But you look at even in the main card, we had Trinaldo against Felder, who are names in the 155-pound division, names, but they're not anywhere close to sniffing a title shot, So the gap.
Yeah, Toronto's like 7 in a row now, and if I'm not mistaken, he's unranked, and what's it really doing for him? Like it just speaks to the depth of the 155-pound division. There's just there's so much depth, there's so much talent, and there's so little room to move.
Yeah, that's the truth of it. It's almost too many people in that 155-pound division. It's just an easy weight for a lot of fighters to make. And should Trinaldo get a title shot? Probably not. He hasn't looked all that impressive, as ridiculous as that sounds, coming off of all these wins in a row. But it is what it is. At some point, when I'm talking about exciting fights at 155 pounds, Trinaldo just doesn't really trip off the tongue. But what he has done with this win streak is I've been able to memorize his awesome nickname. Masaranduba's legendary nickname status.
Yeah, that is badass. I think the first time I saw him fight in the UFC was against Jesse Ronson, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm a big Ronson guy, like the body snatcher, and he's just such a super cool dude, that I was like, all right, go get him, and then was it Masaranduba?
Yeah, Masaranduba.
And I'm like, oh, Jesse, you're in for a night, man.
Yeah, you're never going to beat the Masaranduba. I have no clue what that means. I imagine it's Portuguese for something, right? But
it could be Portuguese for, a plant or something like that. It doesn't matter. It just sounds awesome.
Yeah, if you hear this podcast and you know what Masaranduba means, hit me up on Twitter. I'm @TheClownKid. It's essential that I know.
And you know what? It's Brazilian nicknames, a lot of the time, if they're Portuguese, it's not the same as Western nicknames, because Western nicknames, a great nickname is the body snatcher or something like that, right? Something that inspires intimidation or something like that. But think of Fabricio Verdun, Vai Cavallo, it means go you little horse.
It's just fantastic. And Formiga means ant.
Yeah, and that's actually how they announced it. It's just Juicy Formigo, so it's Juicy Ants, and it's oh, cool. I guess it's just a cultural thing, man. But to me, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think it's a natural evolution when there's 4 last names for an entire country.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Silva. Yeah. Okay, great.
Mr. Dos Santos, meet Mr. Dos Santos and his associate, Mr. Silva.
Yeah. Are any of you related? No. Okay.
No. Distant cousins.
Yeah.
All right, that was the fight card. Usually I put a letter grade on this thing, so maybe before listener questions, let's give out some Fight of the Night awards and throw a letter grade on this thing. Who got your performances, man? Who threw down big? I think it's fairly obvious, though. Actually, there's some finishes in the end, but yeah, who did you like?
Yeah. We've talked about everyone that was impressive. I mean, Pepe ran through Mike De La Torre. Eric Spicely, got to give it up, even though his post-fight, was really, really less impressive than the 258 he spent inside the cage. Big Country did what Big Country needed to do. And Chris Cyborg massacred another hapless victim. I mean,
if you're Joe Silva, who are you giving the 50 G's to?
I'm Joe Silva. I guess we got to give a finish bonus to Big Country. I got to give one to Eric Spicely. And as far as actual fight goes, fight of the night, again, I didn't see the prelims yet, so I'm a little hesitant. I have to judge on just what I saw in the main card. But I guess by default, it would have to be Barao and Nover. And I know that doesn't sound right, even as I'm saying it out loud. But again, I didn't see the prelims, so like I'm kind of left hamstrung here.
Yeah, I hope that, I'd give 50 G's to Philip Nova as a parting gift and say, this just ain't the life for you, buddy. Take 50 G's and figure out what you got to do. The curtain jerker fight was actually my favorite between Gregor Gillespie and Galeo, but I always want to give money to these guys lower on the card. I just feel terrible for them that I even get to watch them. I pay $10 to Fight Pass. That trickles down in very small quantities to them. So, even spiritually, I want to give them money.
Cloud economics does not work, Andrew Lawrence.
Yeah. The Reaganomics just doesn't happen. The UFC is showing that acutely. As far as the whole card goes, and I should give out my performance of the night. So let's throw some money. Let's throw some money Chris Cyborg's way because UFC is probably underpaying her. And you do what you came there to do. You get 50 G's. It seems the way that they want to roll in the UFC. And then we'll give the big country the other 50 G's. He doesn't need it, but it was cool. It's always cool to watch big heavyweights knock each other out. Overall, this card wasn't great. It was not a great fight card. But it kind of was what I expected it to be. But I'll be honest, in the middle of that, I was looking for a quick finish so I could take a quick 20-minute nap. So anytime I'm thinking about my napping schedule during a fight card, you're going to get a grade lower than C. I'll throw a C- on this thing.
Yeah, I actually did find time for a nap just with all the commercials and like promos and everything else. Like I did take a quick 15-minute snooze. So
smart man.
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings is solid 5.5 week 6. I don't think this even got the solid 5.5 status.
Yeah, it's it just wasn't a great card. There's too many decisions.
The best thing you can say about this card, Andrew Lawrence, is that it was a thing that happened.
Yes, it was a thing that happened. I love that. You want to move on to listener questions? What do we got here?
Yeah, man. Let me grab them here.
Okay, yeah, you pull them up. I'll be frank. We're gonna let James down. Actually, you know what? While we're doing listener questions, I'll write a parting shot for myself because I'm on the Parting Shot podcast. Actually, I've renamed this podcast. I've dubbed it now officially Before the Parting Shot Lands. I think
Before the Parting Shot Lands. I like it. Genius.
I probably my talents are going to waste, my good man. I could have been a marketer or something.
Yeah. Okay. First listener question is from Little Nicky, your co-host on. No,
go ahead. What does Little Nicky have to say for us, man?
Oh, dude, you tagged me on that one. Your co-host on the MMA Circus. First things first, do you guys still have that fucking epically long weird intro?
Oh my God! I wrote that. Sometimes the problem with that podcast is I'll just do stuff for a goof, and Nick takes it very seriously. So I wrote that as a complete this would be the funniest intro, right? But then when you actually read it out, you're like, this takes 45 minutes to read. So I wrote that as a funny goof. It's clearly the insane rantings of a person who uses drugs, and he's just we're going with it, and I was like. He recorded it. He had someone do the voice for it, and I was like, okay, man. Yeah, so that's still a thing. The podcast. Everyone thinks it's a 4-hour podcast, but it's actually a 3-hour intro, and then there's just 1 hour of podcasting.
Yeah, exactly. It's that's a massive intro. I thought it was funny the first time I heard it, and then I was.
And then it's unbearable beyond that.
Every week, aren't they?
Every single week it's there, and I probably my laziness as a host and my lack of really caring how that final product comes out is evident in that I'm I could tell this kid to stop it, but forget it. It kind of gives me joy when I listen to it. I assume everyone in the world uses fast forward.
Yeah, it feels like Big Lebowski. If you're not into the whole brevity thing,
It's so ridiculous, yeah. So that is still a thing.
So, Nicky's question: without James running the show, will it be better or a catastrophe? Has it been, Andrew Lawrence? I think yes.
Yes, 100%. Those are not mutually exclusive terms, young Nicholas.
No.
It can both be better and an elaborate shit show.
You know what? Put the dog trophy back on.
What do we got here? Yes. Oh, yeah, we didn't read it to the people. This is a trophy for those of you who stuck around and actually watched the video. You're great people. 2009 Dog Fest, which is it was a varsity trophy. You know.
and dog is spelled D-A-W-G. I just want to make that clear as well.
Thank you for clarifying that, Carlin. Yeah, because if you're gonna win a trophy for with the word dog in it, definitely don't spell it correctly.
No, and that is the award I would give this show. I mean, if there was a 2016 Dog Fest, I mean, that I would give this show.
Aren't there dog fests like that in Taiwan where they eat a bunch of dogs?
No, that's Korea.
Damn.
Get it
I
right.
didn't mean to
Come on, man.
Taiwan. Sorry, Taiwan. Accept my apologies.
Yeah. No, there's all sorts of misspelled English shirts here, which is always fun. But maybe I have to start rocking a Dog Fest one.
Yeah. I'm just gonna hold this trophy for the rest of the show. Are you comfortable with that? Does that intimidate you, Carlin? That you know that I'm such a winner?
Honestly, I feel lesser for not having one. I'm not gonna lie to you. All right,
Carlin, where are your trophies, man?
Yeah, I know. I got nothing. Hey, you know what? We'll start a GoFundMe. We'll start a GoFundMe to get Bards a trophy.
We could. It's probably going to cost us more in shipping. Do you think that there must be trophies in Taiwan, right? There's a trophy culture.
Yeah, there's trophy wives. I guess that's it. I could do.
Now I got 2 trophies, man. I'm a champion over here.
Yeah, you're the best ever.
The best ever. We got another question, man.
Yeah, man, let's get out of this quick. All right, my man Nate Leahy at Burgers MMA, if you care, and you should because the dude's a great dude.
Great guy.
All right, Sage versus Gall, who would you honestly favor in this matchup and why?
Oh, wow, it's a real question. Look at you.
Yeah, real question.
Jesus
Nate's
Christ.
good.
Sage against Gall. I think that the instinct is to favor Sage, but I don't want to put any kind of box on how good this guy Mickey Gall could be. Everything that I see from him has been exceptionally good. He has great instincts. He moves well, but he's been fighting people who suck, and that's a huge problem. You see it all the time if you actually watch low-level MMA. Someone looks like a killer, and then they freeze up because they realize that the person across the way from them has skills. I don't think that's going to happen. So, as much as my smart brain says, hey, let's favor the known quantity in Sage Northcutt, I'm going to go out here on the limb and say that Mickey Gall's my pick.
Yeah, that's you articulated it actually surprisingly well. No, because Sage Northcutt, I am not sold on this guy at all as a fighter, but I know what he's bringing. You know what I mean? I've seen him fight actual dudes. I know where he's at. Mickey Gall, to me, is still a complete unknown because he's, the 2 times I've seen him fight, he fought tackling dummies. So let's be honest with this thing. I don't know what Mickey Gall can do. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I have to favor Sage Northcutt.
There it is. Yeah.
All right.
Now,
go ahead. You have another thought?
No. I have a lot of thoughts, but none of them should be shared right here.
It's a little late for that, dude. We're way off the fucking rails on this thing.
We're deep in the woods, man.
Yeah. All right. The next question. What is your personal favorite weight class to watch in MMA and why? It's a thinker.
I'm not answering the why part, so go fuck yourself. Okay, I'll go first. Sure. I've been upfront about this. I like heavyweight because I like bad MMA, and I know that that's stupid. And I've even said that I don't like bad MMA in multiple occasions, but that's me just trying to, show you guys that I have class or taste or dignity or something. I don't. I like watching big, fat, out-of-shape men fight each other in poor form and bad technique. That's what I like. So, yeah, 265 pounds. And the closer to that number, the better, please.
Yeah, I mean, heavyweight is awesome because there's just so many weird things that happen in MMA. And if you know me at all, you know it hasn't got weird enough for me yet. So I could definitely see that argument for heavyweight MMA. It kind of takes me back to talking about Cyborg kind of being a woman without a country at this point, as far as weight classes go. I mean, her supporters are like, oh, well, she's the best there is at her weight. Yes, why aren't we talking about Emmanuel Newton as the greatest 600-pound fighter ever? I mean, that's a very, very overlooked market, in my opinion.
Talatuli had something to say about that.
Oh man, talk about dream matches that never happened, eh?
Regrets.
Yes, I have a few. And as far as my favorite weight class go, to me, it's always been 170. I don't know, there's always just something about that where guys hit hard enough where it's, like knockouts are still prevalent, that they're well conditioned enough that they can like fucking brawl all over the place for 25 minutes. Coming up with George St. Pierre as a national hero probably didn't hurt much either. But even before that, I was a huge Matt Hughes guy. So I don't know, 170 just always kind of did it for me.
Yeah, 170 is a great class because I consider 155 pounds and below, those are the lighter weight classes, and then there's the heavier weight classes. If you're going to have two weight classes in MMA, it would probably be, 155 down, everyone else up. And that would be an amazing shit show. That would be a great way to turn this sport into just absolute chaos. But
talk to Ryzen.
They're on it. They're already in the process of destroying this sport, trust me. But you're right, 170 pounds, they're still very fast. You see a lot of different styles. When you get into those lower weight classes, it's almost like different techniques and a different approach to fighting is more successful than, kind of what's successful at, say, 180, 205.
Yeah, and that's why I dig it. So, all right, last question on this. This time next year, what is more likely? Chael Sonnen is a Bellator champ, or Tyron Woodley is a UFC champ?
Oh, so full 365 days from today, what's more likely to be a thing? Jesus Christ.
I know. In a sport like MMA, I always hate questions like that because it's like you can't tell the future in this sport. It's topsy-turvy. Everything goes on a whim. One of James's favorite shows to do is the beginning of the year prediction, podcast. It's my least favorite because I just think it sucks because none of it means anything.
If you replay that a year later, you're just gonna be like, okay, so we're dumb as hell. But at the time, it sounded nice.
Yeah, the entire time, I think I argued for Michelle Watterson as a UFC champion by year end or something like that. It's like. Well, what can you do with 365 days in the future? But put your fucking Karnak hat on and go there.
All right, I'm going in there. Okay, if I have to choose between these two choices, I'm going to choose Chael Sonnen being a Bellator champ. There's just too many. There's too many challenges in front of Tyron Woodley, especially the first one against Wonderboy Thompson. If I could make my own option, I think it's more likely that both of them are suspended and being ESPN analysts by the end of the year than either of them being champions.
Yeah, I think that is more likely than either option, to be honest with you. Chael is not going to fight for a title in Bellator. I mean, like,
why would he want to? I don't. That's the hard part with the Chael being the Bellator champion is that even a goal of his?
Yeah, like, who are the champions in Bellator, and who cares? Like, really? Like, it's just not a thing. That's not why people watch Bellator.
When people ask me who the champion is in Bellator, I always just go Joe Warren, and people are like, "No, that's not a thing." But I'm like, it could be. They'll probably give him a title shot soon.
It's Liam Neeson.
Yeah, there you go, Liam Neeson. Yeah. Neil Seary.
Yeah, him too. I'm
not sure.
Didn't Liam Neeson just beat Tito Ortiz? That sounds like a Bellator fight.
Yeah, it was Taken 3. He defeated Tito Ortiz.
Yeah. Shame on Tito trying to take his daughter, but at the same time, at what point does Liam Neeson just become a bad parent?
How dare you? How dare you, Tito? You were an American hero, and then you betrayed us to the Albanians.
Yeah.
Just
All right.
disappointing all around.
Anyway, as far as the actual question goes, um, yeah, like Tyrone Woodley, I think just by process of mathematics could be more likely option to be champion one year. I don't think he will be. I think, like you said, there's a murderer's row at 170. So I don't think that is a really fathomable option. But Chael Sonnen is not going to fight for a Bellator title, period. He's going to go for whatever pays him the most money, and he's right to do that. He's going to fight Tito. He's going to fight maybe Rory. He's going to fight, maybe if Josh Koscheck comes out of his coma, there's a match there. I don't know. But, like there's money fights for Chael Sonnen in Bellator. None of them involve a title, so it's just not happening.
I think if you're Bellator, you might want to push him to get a title. You can offer him maybe some financial incentives to be like, yo, go beat this guy up so we can put our championship belt around. And there's something nice about Chael Sonnen, Bellator champion, when he's out on ESPN doing the old Chael shtick.
Yeah, like the belt in front of him, probably wearing it on his shoulder like he did on that Lina Lansberg interview. Sorry, Michael Lansberg interview.
You know that if Chael were to ever have become the UFC champion, it would have been the most obnoxious thing that this sport has ever encountered. So him being a Bellator champion, I hope that he scales it back. I hope he's not running around there telling people he's the best in the world when you beat, whoever you have to beat at 185 pounds to. Or
honestly, Chael was at the point, even when he was competitive with Anderson, where I was just like, dude, I'm done with this guy. I'm over it. You know what I mean? If he actually won the title, I might have actually just tuned out because it was just too much. You know what I mean? But Chael is
Bellator quits the sport.
Yeah, Chael as Bellator champion is oddly fitting.
Yeah, that is a title that fits really nicely on Chael Sonnen's resume. Bellator champion. Yeah, that makes sense. He was probably like a Bodog champion. So
yeah, well, Bodog had been perfect for it. Give me Chael versus Ken Shamrock.
Yeah, but let's stream it on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, John Snow fights.
There you go. Perfect. So there you are. Listener questions. We did them for you. Boom. Format intact, James Lynch.
Yes. All right. So I guess that leads us to the parting shot.
Oh crap! Right. I didn't write one. You go first, and I'll try to come up with a parting shot.
Fair play. All right. My parting shot is about UFC New York. Have you noticed that there's 4 main card fights announced? Just 4. The UFC is once again playing chicken with Conor McGregor. And I think it's ridiculous. Meet the guy's number, make the zillions of dollars, and let's just all move forward. Why do we have to do this song and dance every time Conor McGregor fights? Okay? So he's just come off 2 record-setting pay-per-views. Meet his number. All right? Is it about control or is it about making money for the UFC? They need to decide. And with a new ownership group in place, Ari Gold is in a very, very unique position where he can just tell Dana White, listen, I don't care. We're going to make money. Don't be a dick about it. Dana has never had that before because Dana and the Fertittas go way back. It was always kind of a friendship thing with them. Ari Gold, we know, is loyal to nobody. Yeah. So if he just leans on Dana White and says, listen, I want to throw a pay-per-view. I want to make $1 zillion. Meet Conor McGregor's number. Let's do Conor and Eddie at for the lightweight title at UFC New York. Why not do it? Stop with all this whole charade about Eddie Alvarez fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov, because honestly, I like Khabib. Yeah, I like Khabib, but who cares? And who is Khabib really beat? Honestly, the guy fights once every 3 years. It feels like
he beat RDA. That was the name.
He's fought basically fringe guys. Fights once every 3 years, and I'm supposed to get hyped up, for him getting a title shot. No, make the Conor McGregor fight, make the money, leave me happy.
Perfect. It's an interesting time in the company because I think how this negotiation ends up working out with Conor McGregor will indicate what's going on in the sport or how the sport will operate under its new management. You know, if it's more willing to play ball, or maybe he shuts out Connor and they decide, hey, you know, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, as they say. Another interesting factor here is that, you know, how much leeway are they giving Dana White to make these decisions? Are they just letting him run the company? Because if you know, or what is it, WME, yeah, William
ME.
Morris, yeah, whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. If they're letting Dana White run the show, we who are insiders and know and have dealt with Dana White for a while, that, you know, he needs to be kept from his worst, you know, ideas. Dana White is a person who needs to be reined in, and all these people who used to keep him in check are all gone. Joe Silva's gone, Fertitta brothers are gone, so we might just see Dana set this whole goddamn thing on fire, and wouldn't that be a fantastic thing to watch?
I don't ever happen because Ari Gold is a very, very smart man, and
Exactly.
Ari Gold, you know, is one of these guys that, you know, if he gets tired of Dana, he needs Dana right now, because Ari Gold does not know how to run a fight promotion, and Dana White, for all his flaws, absolutely does. He's fantastic at it. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? But if Dana White steps out of bounds, do you think it's not going to be one of those scenes like in Entourage where he just goes, "Get the fuck out"?
Exactly. You know, there's more of a chance that Dana White is fired as the president of the UFC in 365 days than Tyron Woodley maintains the title.
Yeah.
My parting shot for this week's parting shot is, you know, I was looking at these upcoming cards to try to find something to say, and I noticed that for the next 10 weeks in a row, there will be an MMA event, a UFC event. And good Lord, I don't think I'm going to make it, Carlin Bardsley. UFC scheduling staff, don't do this to me, man. I run this show. You know, I stay up till 2 in the morning doing this stupid thing. So I'm going to be sleep deprived, and the quality of this show by week 8 or 9 will probably be completely in the dumpster.
Well, I mean, just think about this. I mean, we've been talking this long about a card that really didn't matter, and we've been doing it mostly by amusing ourselves, telling like boxing and hockey and Chuck cocaine stories. Yeah. Can you imagine how little value a lot of these things have? And the reason UFC used to be destination programming, because there was one card a month, right? There was something you could all get hyped up for. Everyone knew who everybody was, and you were just locked into that. Now it's, you know, just such a question of mass production that it's too much, even for us that really, really love the sport. It's just too much to keep up with. I mean, we have lives, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I get excited for these cards, but when you hear 10 weekends in a row, you start saying, like, okay, which one of these can I skip? Who can I get to guest host the show on week 4 when we're in, you know, Saskatchewan or wherever the hell we end up?
Hey, don't wait. I gotta take a shit after all that.
I thought that was like a neutral Canadian city. I figured like everyone would be like, yeah, fuck Saskatchewan, who cares, man?
You just said so many nice things about Charmaine Tweet, then you got to go dump on Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan, I love you. I'm gonna come up there. I'm gonna buy a couple of deer tags. You know, knock out some bucks. Or actually, I won't. I'll go there and I'll support your local beer industry, and all will be forgiven. At least on my end. I don't care how you feel about me, really.
There we go. Everybody wins.
There we go. All right, man. All right, show's kind of over, man. So it's been a doozy.
Yeah, it has definitely been a thing that happened.
It's been a thing that happened. How do you guys sign off? What do you guys do over at the party?
Oh yeah, Lynch has his own line. You know, I always default to the one I had back when I had like a real show. You know.
Yeah. I know. I think I know James Lynch's. Do you want to say goodbye and tell the people where to contact you? The time is yours. That's what he says. The floor is yours.
The floor is yours. There you go. All right. Well, you can find me on the Twitter at Carlin Bardsley. We could talk about face punching. We could talk about beer. We could talk about the newly reformed, resurgent, rejuvenated Guns N' Roses and how they're kicking ass all over the world right now. We can talk about Bill Murray movies, Asian women, Canadian politics, and not much else because I'm not that bright, but that's where you can find me, at Carlin Bardsley on the Twitter.
All right. Yeah, definitely give Carlin his follow. Yeah, my name's Andrew Lawrence, if you didn't know, and you can find me on Twitter at @theclownkid. You can talk to me about nearly anything, because I am very smart, and I will engage anyone in some BS conversation about a topic that I should not pretend that I have expertise in.
You're Philippe Nova smart.
yeah, I'm too smart to be doing this, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, once again, we've shouted about like 20 times, but James, thanks for, taking the week off so we could do this. It's a lot more fun.
We love you, Lynch.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun when the adults are out of the room.
Yeah.
No, but thank you too, Carlin, for calling me up and doing this thing. It's been fun to kind of combine the two things and make something even weirder than they are separately.
Yeah, and honestly, that takes effort because we were pretty weird separately. So to be able to do this together, honestly, Andrew, it's been a blast. I really do appreciate that. We were able to do this, and it's always great time talking to you. You and Lopez are my two favorite guys to talk to when we're doing this kind of BS shit. So
Well, now I hate
appreciate
Lopez. Now Lopez Radio is my deep. No, I love that guy too. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. No, it's always great to chat with you because things always seem to water finds its own level, and that's what I think we're doing here. So there's not really much else to say except for thank you guys all again. Thank you for the guys who watched it live, and oh yeah, keep your hands up because you don't want to get knocked out. Bye.